Well, fortunately, I had to go on a mission earlier. Hold on, let me get set up. Okay, I'm ready. I need my hat for this discussion. And so, on my mission, I went ahead and I made an idiotic decision to watch the Emoji movie. And yeah, we all know that, yeah, I think we all know what you get when you watch the Emoji movie. One of the worst animated films of all time. In fact, I'd probably say it's like my fourth least favorite animated movie. But to be fair, that is, I mean, I haven't seen that many bad animated movies, so that is being a little nice. A little bit nice, I guess. Because the only other three animated movies that I hate more than this are Norm of the North, Food Fight, which is the worst, and The Little Panda Fighter. But it's the worst animated movie I've seen in theaters, though. I didn't watch Norm in theaters or any of the other movies in theaters. Yeah. So, we all know this movie is bad. But do you want to know how bad it is? Alright. So, this movie is basically a ripoff of Wreck-It Ralph and Inside Out and Smurfs The Lost Village. However, I'll admit it's not as bad as a ripoff as most people say it is. I mean, it's more of the concept that they take. The only one of these movies that actually does literally like rip it off is Smurfs The Lost Village, which it's very weird because it is owned by Sony, the same company that made this movie. So Sony is basically copying off of their own studios. So I guess it's not that bad. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I guess, but it's still pretty unoriginal. I mean, it's not exactly like Wreck-It Ralph, but I mean, it still has a very similar storyline about a guy who pretty much doesn't want to do his job because he doesn't feel like he's like the right person for it, and so he goes on a journey, tries to fix tries to fix himself as he goes on a journey of self discovery, and yeah, pretty much that. And then the Inside Out aspect is pretty much where all the characters in the phone pretty much control what happens in their phone, while the person who owns the phone pretty much goes through everything. Yeah, very similar to Riley's story in a way, I guess. But here it's a lot more bland. Same with it in Wreck-It Ralph, and it tries to convey a nice message of being yourself, but it is executed very poorly, unfortunately, which really sucks because it's a message that really could have worked, but they just really couldn't execute it well in this film. Now, let's move on to the animation. The animation looks bad, but there are some good things about the animation. I mean, for one, a lot of backgrounds inside the phone look pretty decent. However, the designs are very lazy. Like, pretty much all they did with all the emojis is they just added arms and legs, and that's it. Nothing else. So it's like, okay, let's like get this hat, see, that I'm wearing. Now, how about for a character, you put eyes, you put a mouth, add arms and legs, and there. That's all they did. That is really how lazy these designs are. And it's really annoying in the film. I'll admit that the human designs do look decent. However, we're barely even there, so that doesn't really matter. And then some, while I did say that some of the backgrounds do look nice, with others, not so much. I mean, in some of the areas, they feel limited for some reason, and I have no idea why they feel like that. Yeah. As for the characters, they're a bit of a mix, and I don't mean a mix good, mix bad. I mean mix bad, mix intolerable, and mix just bland. With the main character Gene, he goes into the bland category. I mean, I didn't hate him in this film, but he's a very bland character. Like, literally what he goes through, we just don't care for him as much as we do with other characters. Like, with Wreck-It Ralph, we at least care for Ralph and what he goes through because we get an idea of what he's going through and he explains how he feels. We don't get that with Gene though. We just see him as another random character that we don't care for. Now, T.J. Miller, what are you doing in this movie? You're like one of my favorite actors. What are you doing in a freaking Emoji movie? And speaking of that, there's a couple of actors that I even recognize in this film. What are you guys doing? Anna Faris? Patrick Stewart. Now, Anna Faris doesn't do a very good job as the character Jailbreak. Like, I feel like she just doesn't feel like it. Like, I feel like Anna Faris and Jailbreak feel like very different characters. But I mean that in a bad way, though. Like, I don't understand, like, what her character is supposed to... I mean, I feel like... It's hard to explain, because I feel like their emotions don't work within the film. Let's see. There's also the High Five character. He goes into intolerable. I mean, he gets really annoying in this film. I'm not lying. He's super annoying. And it's at the point where I want him to be gone in the film. And I almost never want that in a movie. Judging by the trailers, I thought that he was just going to be a decent character. I was wrong. He got very annoying. And at times, he ended up being mean-spirited. And that's the problem with the majority of the characters in this film. They're very mean-spirited. And because of, like, the ways the emojis are supposed to act, like, a lot of the face emojis are meant to keep one emotion at all times. Because of that, well, other than Gene, because, yeah, he's different. Because of this, it causes a lot of scenes in the movie to be very awkward. Like, let's say that you're a crying emoji. You're supposed to always keep that crying emotion the whole time. But you want to laugh. You're basically crying when you laugh. And it's hard to explain, but if you've seen this movie, you understand what I mean. And then there's the villain, Smiler. I mean, I feel like they tried a little too hard to make her a great villain. Yeah. A little too hard. Gene's parents, they're pretty much your average hateable parents from other movies. Yeah. And then there's not really any other characters I could talk about. I mean, there's Alex, the user of the phone. I mean, we don't really care for him because he's barely even in the movie overall. Yeah. And then I didn't really get to talk about the story other than the unoriginality, but the story sucks, which is given for an emoji movie. And I mean, with the concept of emojis being controlled in phones, it could have been much better. I mean, heck, I've even created, like, my own, like, in my imagination, I've came up with stories of, like, what do these things do in my phone? Like, I like expanding my imagination like that. But Sony really doesn't execute it very well. In fact, Sony already took two of my ideas. This movie, well, they did it very differently. They just had the concept. And Pixels. Dang, Sony. You're taking everything. And then, the main problem that the story has is that it feels like nothing happens. And you just don't care at all for any of this. And then with the jokes, they are absolutely insufferable. Like, they go by and then you're all like, this is supposed to be funny. And then it starts giving me headaches. And if a movie can give you a headache, that's a problem. Yeah. Especially since in the first 20 minutes of the movie, there's like 10 poop jokes in it. Yeah. And let me give you guys a word of advice. do not use emojis. It gives me memories of this movie. And from now on, we no longer speak of this movie. So, if I'd had to give this movie a ranking, I'd give it a 3 out of 10. It was like this close to getting a 2 out of 10, but I thought it barely deserved a 3 out of 10. It was pretty close though. Pretty close. But the things that kept it from there are kind of some of the performances, some of the animation looked decent, and I could tell that there's a little bit of creativity put into this, but even then, it just goes in a shameless advertising. I need to go before things go on a rampage. Hopefully you guys take my advice.
What's that word? Like, if he thinks he could just beat every single
Sammy, what are you doing?
I get it
Just
but,
texting
like,
somebody.
I'm disrespectful from what I heard.
Why are you
So I
using
didn't really want to go
emojis?
for him.
Because I like to use them.
And then the
Do
other
not
one
use
don't.
emojis, Sammy. They are illegal. They remind me of a movie we don't speak of. I told you we
I didn't
don't
go
speak
for
of
him
it.
because he's not an actual, like,
Thanks, Nintendo.
actual boxer.